Good afternoon to you. 3:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, we'll talk to Dan Moranoff from the American Civil Rights Project about Joe Biden and his hiring. He keeps hiring people who are anti-American. We've got the details ahead with Dan. Josh Krauscher is joining us at 5 o'clock from Jewish Insider, Axios as well. We'll talk about the current state of the 2024 primaries and one Democrat congresswoman's ongoing attacks on Israel. Kind of fascinating. Josh will react to all of that. Mark Paoletta is here at 5:30. We talked to him about the new bigoted attacks on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Those continue from the left this weekend. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. What is wrong with Ron DeSantis? What is wrong with the Florida governor's presidential campaign right now? I'd love to get your impression. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Trying to figure out what's happening here to this campaign. You know, the perspective from DeSantis' world seems to be that the reason Donald Trump has performed so well in all of the available polling is that there's a lot of sympathetic support for him as a result of the indictments against him, that the left has trained all of its evil resources against Donald Trump. They've taken aim at him, and they're trying to take him down. And so as a result, Donald Trump's support has grown among the Republican base. And I would say that there's absolutely some truth to that. That's something I've been saying from behind this very microphone, that there is plenty of support for Trump that has only grown as Republicans and people who have voted for Trump in the past are looking and going, there goes the government again. There go our institutions again, trying to destroy him, trying to meddle in our election. And so if you're going to do that, I'm going to support the guy. I'm seeing a lot of that out there, and that makes a lot of sense. But why is Ron DeSantis at just 14% support? Why can't he crack even higher than that? 14% support in this newly released INI TIPP poll. That's of 486 likely Republican primary voters just out. They say DeSantis has 14% support. He is 39 points back on Donald Trump. 39 points back. Not even close. Trailing both men is Vivek Ramaswamy at 7%. And this comes as somewhat of a surprise to me, but former Vice President Mike Pence also sitting at 7%. 7%. Everyone else very distant here. Low single digits. But DeSantis hasn't been able to break through. And he certainly hasn't accrued more support. Now, I realize that, you know, if you look at the beginning of this DeSantis campaign, there was a lot of mockery made of the fact that the Twitter launch did not go well out the gate. Right? They tried to hold this Twitter Spaces event where Elon Musk would interview Ron DeSantis, and they were going to chat with one another, and he was going to make this big presidential announcement. He was going to do something new, a new candidacy for a new era, announce it on social media, and it was just it was like Joe Biden going upstairs. They just were tripping the whole time trying to get that statement out. And that, again, I blame on Elon Musk. But if you're going to run a top-tier presidential campaign, you do have to ask the basic questions. Hey, are you ready for this? Is your infrastructure prepared for this event? Can we take on potentially millions of listeners at the same time? Will we be able to fundraise off of this? And so he eventually gets the campaign off the ground, and now he's running, but he is just lagging behind here. In the last week, we've seen a number of headlines indicating that it is time for something to change. I've seen reports that conservative media was checking Ron DeSantis for his vital signs, trying to see if his campaign was still alive. I've seen reports that donors are nervous about him now. They're not as switched on by him as they were in the first place, thinking about committing their resources elsewhere. Seen quite a bit of that. We also see a report that Ron DeSantis has fired a number of his campaign workers. That he's let me see here. I'm just trying to pull up the article here. That DeSantis has been getting rid of a bunch of the early campaign members, that it's time to throw them out. And that would make sense because, one, they need to save some money. Yeah, they're firing roughly a dozen staffers in a campaign shakeup. That's according to NBC6 South Florida. Trying to shake things up. Also seeing reports that he is now changing his media strategy, that maybe he won't be so entirely reliant on just doing friendly media. And he shouldn't. How long have I been saying this? I've been saying this for a while. If DeSantis wants to prove something, he should do what Vivek Ramaswamy has done. How did Vivek go from nobody knows who he is to what, 7% support in this survey with Donald Trump in the field? He has 7% support. How does Vivek do that? Well, Vivek went on, Meet the Press, and he does all the adversarial interviews, and he goes and he sits down and he gets into combat. This is what Donald Trump did in the first place. How did Donald Trump become so famous in 2016? Social media strength and, he was already famous, but as a presidential candidate, social media strength and adversarial interviews. He would sit down on MSNBC. He would sit down on CNN. He would throttle his interviewer. He would tell them, he would say, excuse me. He would interrupt them. He would say why they were wrong. He would attack them if necessary. He would defend himself by attacking them if necessary. If you want to succeed in 2023, you have to be like that. If you're going to derive any lessons from Donald Trump, that should be one of them. So now Ron DeSantis, tomorrow, what is he doing? He's doing CNN. He's doing a Jake Tapper interview Tuesday of this week, which I think is well advised. It's a good idea. Sit down with Tapper, let him come after you, and then go after him. Acquit yourself. You know he's capable of it, right? Remember what he did with the 60 Minutes chick who was standing in front of him and making it seem like his COVID response was messed up, and he read her the riot act. He gave her unbelievable detail about how he was handling things in Florida. The kind of thing that typically only, say, a senior advisor may be able to tell him. No, he knew it off the top of his head. Very capable. Megyn Kelly was down at this Turning Points Action Summit over the weekend. This is a summit in Florida that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, skipped. Donald Trump did it, and he got a huge response there. Meanwhile, the two men switched positions in Iowa last week because on Friday, Ron DeSantis had very successful remarks at the Family Leadership Summit on Friday as he sat with Tucker Carlson. The two of them chatted. DeSantis performed very well. Donald Trump didn't go to that. He declined the invitation to go to the Family Leadership Summit. He said he had a scheduling conflict. I think both men should have been at both events because that's worthwhile. But here's Megyn Kelly talking to our friend Mary Margaret Olahan of the Daily Wire over the weekend about what Ron DeSantis should do if he's looking at, fixing his campaign.
And I really think the number one thing he needs to do is get himself in front of adversarial liberal media and fight. That will send – look what happened with Carrie Lake.
Did I say Daily Wire? Daily Signal, excuse me. The Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal.
Who, with respect to Kerry, doesn't have 1/10 of his accomplishments, at least in the legislative field or in Republican politics. And so if he could just get in front of these, go on MSNBC. That's what I would tell him to do.
MSNBC, that's your top choice?
Do it or Meet the Press. I mean, any show on CNN. Everybody is left-wing other than sort of Fox and digital media. So take your pick. But he should get out there and fight.
Yeah, he should get out there and fight. I think people want to see that. Also, I have one other piece of advice for him. Take over your Twitter account yourself, please. Don't have staff doing this. The whole idea is if you want to project authenticity, just be yourself. Go on social media and represent yourself there. You think Donald Trump lets other people tweet for him? To the extent that that's true, it's just him shouting out what he wants his tweets to be and a top aide writing them down and then posting them to social media. But that's it. It's Donald Trump's coining all this stuff. Ron DeSantis, do the same thing. Be the personal voice. Be the guy who mixes it up. All right, your calls are coming in. Your thoughts on what is going on here in this Republican primary. Does Ron DeSantis even have a chance here as Donald Trump sits so far ahead of him? 888-630-9625. Let's go to Al first in Bowie, Maryland. Al, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Great to talk to you again. Hey, I think Ron DeSantis might be a little too normal, and I think that doesn't play well in this current environment with all the wokeness and people want to pretend they're woke. They hope nobody will notice that they're not woke. Excuse me. I think that Ron DeSantis comes across as a guy who's trying to actually be moral and normal. And people are thinking, well, Trump doesn't talk about that. Trump talks about, kicking butt and taking names and everything. And DeSantis says, well, I would just like America to be normal again and, moral. And we're afraid that can't win.
So you think he lacks the aggression to win in the Republican primary?
Yeah, I guess that's another way to say it. But I honestly feel like you have to be kind of accepting of all the weirdness around so that you don't drive the opposition to the polls real hard. And DeSantis really seems like just a decent guy. And I hate to say it, but we're not like a decent populist like we used to be. And
okay, so let me. I think you're saying something too about Donald Trump, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think that Donald Trump is too tolerant of some of the weirdness?
Yeah. I think Donald Trump. I voted for him twice. But I think he goes wherever the wind blows. I just like his business acumen and so forth. That's why I voted for him. But I don't think he's a guy like Ron DeSantis, where he says, stick with your wife, stick with your family, stick with normal sexual practices, etc.
One of the things about Trump, and you've seen it from time to time, for instance, when he was asked about which bathroom would Caitlyn Jenner use at Trump Tower, and he said, I don't care which one.
Yeah, nice. That's a good pull, yep.
Yeah, and so I think what ends up happening is, and especially on some of these culture issues, the left declares war on normal people, and there are people like you, Al, and me, for that matter, who look at it and going, I want you to fight back for me. I want you to fight back for me and my family. This is what I'm asking of you. And so when you see that, you say, I want a little bit more. But you think that DeSantis, I guess it's hard for me to understand now. DeSantis says things like Florida's where woke goes to die. This is the language he's been using, and he says he's fighting back against all of this. You think that runs the risk of what, losing a general election?
Yeah, I think people are couching their bets and just saying, that's great. It's wonderful. I love the way he thinks. I love what he's done.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. But they're gonna come out in force against this guy. I mean, they hate Trump just because of his orangeness and his white supremacy and all that stuff they've made up. But they really hate.
Yeah.
He really is a normal guy.
All right, Al. Thank you very much. Let me get another call in here. I've got Sal calling in from Culpeper. He's on line 3. Sal, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince.
Hey, sir.
Yes. Well, my opinion is I don't think people are supporting Trump because of his indictments and all that. I don't think they feel sorry for him. I think they realize how it was when he was president. That's number one. And as far as DeSantis goes, like your last caller said, he's a nice guy and all. I think his wife is stronger than him in opinion, voicing herself and all that. I just think he's too low key. I think he's like Bush.
Wow, that's an insult. I just I'm looking at Corey in the producer booth. He is ooh, you hear Bush. That's a tough one. So what I'm hearing right now, this is a sample size of 2. What I'm hearing so far is people don't think he's got the intestinal fortitude, that he doesn't have the aggression that they desire out of a candidate who's going to represent this country right now in this pivotal time in our history. Would you say that, Sal?
Yeah, I think he's afraid of Trump. Meaning, I don't think he wants to debate Trump anyway, and I don't even think he would be chosen for vice president. He's done great things to Florida, and like Trump said the other day, Ron, stay here, stay home, and I kind of like that. And he needs to stay in Florida and keep all the Northerners intact.
Yeah.
And I think that would be good.
All right, Sal, thank you very much for your assessment today. More of your calls coming up on this subject. Obviously, this is like, you talk about this at home with your family, what's going on here. I want you to talk about here with us on WMAL. Hold tight. The DeSantis campaign has fired roughly a dozen staffers, according to reporting out of the Sunshine State. Looking to shake things up in the campaign. He's doing an interview tomorrow on a left-wing network, CNN. He'll be sitting down with Jake Tapper, hoping that maybe mixing it up with some lefties could change his fortunes. Let me bring in Sam from Alexandria, line 2. Sam, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. What do you think of this DeSantis campaign so far?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. Thus far, it's been milk toast, and I think what he has to do is exactly what he's doing tomorrow. I saw that on the TV today, and I'm like, wow, that's refreshing. And I say that only because over the weekend I saw the Tucker Carlson interview with Vivek, and I got to tell you, brother, that man is impressive. And I'm not talking about Tucker, even though he is. And he has been consistently, I've noticed in my some of my streaming video accounts, consistently mixing it up with the quote-unquote enemy. He is not afraid to go on any show, any podcast, and have that conversation. And I'm like, daggone, this is refreshing. And I think that's what DeSantis needs to do now. And then once he gets through the into the debates, I think he will build up a head of steam.
Yes. All these guys, they need to go into enemy territory, forcefully defend what makes America great, stand up for it, and stop sucking up to all these media figures. That makes things better. You don't be Chris Christie. Christie's going in there and sucking up to these guys working for ABC. Don't do that. No. Fight. And that's what Vivek has done that. In fact, he's not just fighting, he's convincing some of these people. He went on, what was that show, The Breakfast Club? He went on there, he was convincing them of the rightness of our arguments. If Ron DeSantis wants to even survive this campaign and have any job in American politics, he should start doing that very thing immediately. He's capable of it. Now's his chance. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, Dan Morinoff will be with us from the American Civil Rights Project. We'll talk about some Biden nominees who don't have America's best interests at heart. Dan's got the details. Josh Krauscher will be here at 5 o'clock today. We'll talk about the news with him in the 2024 primary, also some of these crazy Democrats. And Mark Paoletta is with us at 5:30 as we get into even more crazy Democrats who are trying to attack the United States Supreme Court again and have some racist things to say about our great Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This one, just over the transom and into my inbox, it's really funny. Secretary of State Antony Blinken apparently made some remarks today saying that Republicans in the Senate need to stop holding up all of our ambassadorial nominees. That all these ambassadors aren't getting through because those mean and nasty Republicans in the Senate. The people's business is not being conducted because Republicans are bad people. That's what the Secretary of State was trying to say today. It led to this moment at the State Department press briefing, which is hilarious. The Associated Press has a reporter named Matt Lee. You may have heard him before. He's a guy who pays attention to the details. And then having paid attention to the details, he asks questions based on the details. In other words, he's committing acts of journalism. I know, those are few and far between these days, but here's an example of it as he challenges this State Department spokesman about this claim that Republicans are holding up ambassadors in the Senate. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Well, I'm just curious because, when the Secretary said by the end of the summer you won't have confirmed ambassadors in Egypt, Israel, Jordan, or Lebanon, but I don't think, unless I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there has been anyone even nominated to replace Tom
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? Unless I'm wrong, I love the little throat clearing, and he knows he's not, but he's like, this is embarrassing, but you're a moron. Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Lebanon. He says that the Republicans are holding up the ambassador positions. Unless I'm wrong, you haven't nominated anyone to those jobs. So it might be a problem.
This summer you won't have confirmed ambassadors in Egypt, Israel, Jordan, or Lebanon, but I don't think, unless I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there has been anyone even nominated to replace Tom Lines.
The point he was making is that we had no.
I mean, you can't complain.
If we had a nominee today, that nominee would still face the same blanket hold after that nominee went through the Senate, the regular process, still same the blanket hold.
This is unbelievable. So the State Department spokesclown is saying that, well, hypothetically, Republicans would be stopping us if we had even nominated somebody.
Sir, has the White House nominated anyone?
No, we have not yet nominated, but if you look at the number of let me finish. If you look at the situation as it exists currently, all the nominees that start today are still backlogged based on what's happening in the floor. There is a huge backlog.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm not debating that point. I'm just wondering if have there been people nominated for those four posts?
We have. I don't have the full.
I think at least one of them has been.
Yeah,
but certainly no one for Israel.
That's right. Well, the ambassador for Israel just stepped down in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, but you're complaining about something that's going to happen later this summer, but you don't even have anyone in the
I would be.
This is unbelievable. I mean, at this point, it's the Biden administration, so actually, technically, it's not unbelievable. Like, they are willing to stoop to the lowest of lows. But to literally invent a controversy, they're not letting us get ambassadors through. You haven't nominated anybody. Yeah, but if we did, they wouldn't let us get them through. What kind of scandal is this? You just made that up.
More than happy to withdraw the complaint if the Senate decides to start moving on our ambassadors expeditiously.
Did he say ambassadors? What is it? This is the cringe school of spokesmen.
And we can count on the ambassador to nominate to Israel to be moved through unanimous consent, as these typically have been.
Going to make some news about who would be nominated.
I don't think I should do that.
No, I don't think you should speak. So there you go. The State Department today, they're just making up a scandal that doesn't even exist. Now, it should be noted that one of the reasons United States Senate business has been held up, going to a very real and interesting fight, is that you've got Tommy Tuberville out of the state of Alabama is blocking senior military promotions right now. Senior military promotions. And Fox's Chad Pergram, he's a guy who's about as much of an expert as anybody in the media is on the process of the United States Congress. And he tweeted a great thread today on how Tommy Tuberville is standing his ground here and standing up for our American military. Now, I don't want to put words into Chad Pergram's mouth. These are my words. That Tommy Tuberville is standing up for our American military. He's standing against the manipulation of, the meddling with the United States military, this push to abort more children that the Biden administration is trying to use the Pentagon for. It's just totally contemptible. A full-on attack on life and the United States military. And so Tommy Tuberville standing up against it. God bless him for it. But Chad Pergram put out a thread today explaining how this is done. And if I can summarize it, he just goes through the variety of Senate motions that are involved. And, it's Byzantine. It's always hard to kind of track the way Congress does votes and cloture votes and unanimous consent and on and on and on. But at its core, what Tuberville is doing is saying, no, I'm not going to allow unanimous consent to just blast all of these promotions through. We're not going to do that. In fact, I'm willing to take these piecemeal. I'm willing to have every single general officer promotion put in front of me. A flag officer, go ahead, every single one. Let's consider every single one. These are 250 guys. Now, here's the issue. If you were to do that, it would take days on end for each individual flag officer's nomination to be considered. So Tuberville, he can do this as one United States senator. And then in order to overcome that, it takes days of process votes for the rest of the Senate to overcome him, and they would be able to confirm one person at a time over the course of many months. You understand what this means. It would take forever. It would take forever to get all of these nominations through. Chad Pergram says if the Senate devoted 8 hours of its day just to military promotions and nothing else, 8 hours just to military promotions, the process would devour 84 consecutive days. It would take 84 days to get all of this through. So the Senate can do it. They can overcome the objections of this one United States senator. But it would take 84 days to do it. 3 months. So Tuberville is kind of in the driver's seat now, isn't he? So why isn't the Biden administration backing off of this crap? Why do they need more babies aborted using taxpayer dollars? Why do they need that? The answer is they don't. They don't need that. So abandon this stupid attack on life, this cruel attack on life, you fake Catholic president. Abandon it, and you can get all of your nominations through. Go ahead. Just do it. So I hope Tommy Tuberville stands strong in the face of this. I really hope he does. Because this is a noble fight. It is a noble defense. He didn't launch this first. It was the Biden administration who decided to meddle with defense spending to advance abortion. It wasn't Tommy Tuberville. Tommy Tuberville's standing on principle. He's standing for the America that you and I grew up with. Joe Biden's leading an assault on that America. Good for Tommy Tuberville. And boy, they've got the long knives out for him. They really do. They really want to destroy this guy. And so far as Chad writes, Chad Pergram writes, Tuberville is so far prevailing in his protest over the military's abortion policy. So good for him. It's amazing, though, that this is, it has to take this. But I'm glad to see it. This is one of the nice things about, they're in the minority in the Senate, but he's got the ability to do this. He can blockade this for a bit. Left is crazy, though, aren't they? They're really nuts. I wanted to share some audio with you there was that Turning Point Action conference over the weekend I was telling you about, and that's where Donald Trump spoke. A couple of our favorites, they all got up there and they gave remarks. Among them was Tucker Carlson. He had flown. He's like, is he the only person, or were there others who went from the Family Leader Summit to Turning Point Action? Did Vivek do it? Vivek went to both. Okay. But Tucker, one of the only... Now, Tucker not a candidate for anything. Tucker's just, the guy who did the interviews on stage, and then he gave a speech over the weekend at the Turning Point USA conference. Now, as usual, Tucker did not have any prepared remarks. There is no such thing for Tucker. He just gets up and he'll just speak extemporaneously. And will, say what's on his mind, what he's been thinking about, what he's been dwelling on, what he's been noodling over, and then share it with the audience and work with them. And at one point during his remarks, somebody shouted out about the cocaine found at the White House. Now, I don't think that this was like a call and response session. I don't think he was looking for people in the crowd just to shout out various nouns and buzzwords, and then he would respond to them. But this did happen when it comes to cocaine, and it led to a very funny moment on stage.
What'd you say? You know what? The thing about that story, it's just a mystery to me. No one was more shocked than I was. Are you serious? In the Biden White House, somebody left an 8-ball of cocaine in a public... I said to my wife, it's just not in character, I just don't believe it. It's clearly a setup. I went right back to Marion Barry, and I was like, somebody set you up. Yeah. I'm serious.
The mayor for life, D.C. mayor for life, Marion Barry, caught on camera years ago, hidden camera, saying the bleep set me up. The female dog set me up, he said. Not my drugs. I was set up.
To Marion Barry, and I was like, somebody set you up. I'm serious. It was, you know what I mean? It was like... I'll stop with it. That was my favorite story of all time. Because it just explains all the behavior. It really does. I worked in the media business for my whole life, so I know what the behavior looks like. but it's like crazed and grandiose. I've got a plan. You're not going to believe it.
Now, in this sequence, he starts rubbing his nose every other second or so, as you would if you were snorting cocaine.
It's unbelievable. It's going to totally work. What we're going to do is we're going to totally rearrange everything, okay? We've been doing things a certain way for a long time, okay? And it's worked, but I've got a better plan. And that's their entire approach.
Pretty funny, very funny, actually. So yeah, that was the scene down in Florida. That seems like a good scene. Corey, we should go down there at some point to one of these Turning Point conferences. We'll see if we're allowed. But that was really funny. Okay, hold tight. I want to help you navigate the roadways, hopefully sober. I look at these stories and I go, okay, what's the next crazy thing we're gonna get to? And these aren't just like random things. These are the biggest institutions in our country, whether it's the government or big corporations like Disney, constantly pursuing the craziest crap. Have you seen all of the hoopla around Disney's new live-action remake? Because they don't have any new ideas. They don't want to pay for anything new. They're just remaking all the old cartoons and then screwing them up. That's the whole plan at Disney. And then they're losing all this money, and they're wondering, why the hell are we losing all this money for? It's because you suck, and you don't have anything original, and you're reinterpreting beloved movies as crappy facsimiles of the once great product. That's why. Do you need any more explanation? Put me on a shareholder call. I'll tell you what's wrong. So they're remaking Snow White. You see this? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but now they're just calling it Snow White. They don't use the word dwarves. And the seven people who are playing the, quote, dwarves are not dwarves anymore. There's 6 adults of a variety of colors and then 1, quote, little person. That's it. And they said, well, they want to recreate it because they want to reimagine the magical people that she hangs out with. What Orwellian horse crap is this? She's Snow White. She hangs out with dwarves. They mine for diamonds. They sing about it, and then they have to defeat an evil witch. Can we get back to the roots of this whole thing? No. Now it's not. Now you can't say 7 dwarves, and you can't even hire dwarves to do the job. So, this is progress, right? So the progress we have in 2023, out of our respect for dwarves, is we don't hire them. We don't give them jobs. We keep them from 7 of the best damn jobs for little actors in the entire country. They don't get to have that work now because of your stupid left-wing sensibilities. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I realized, who was it? Remember, the guy from Game of Thrones? He's famous. He's one of the most famous little people ever. Dwarf. Peter Dinklage. He's got dwarfism. That's why they say dwarfs. Peter Dinklage, right? Famous actor. Fantastic actor. Loved him in Game of Thrones. He came out, what was it, like a year ago? And he was complaining about little people being typecast as little people. It's kind of insulting and blah, blah, blah. What? You are the most famous dwarf actor on the planet. You have succeeded based on your acting talent and, yes, in your acknowledgement of your stature. He was in the movie Elf as a guy who was made fun of because of his size. He signed on to that role knowing what it came with. And now he's trying to pull the ladder up behind him. He gets to the top of the mountain and he goes, nope, no more little people. You're not getting up here. Not with Peter Dinklage. My face is going on Mount Dwarfmore. Everybody else, nobody's allowed. Nobody's allowed. What are you, crazy? So here's Disney doing this stupid stunt. And the way it all came out was somebody released a photo from the set of the movie. And there's just one dwarf, one person with dwarfism, and the rest of them are just 6 other adults who I don't even know how they fit into the movie because it doesn't even make any sense based on the original story. The picture comes out. Disney at first tells the news media, oh, those aren't real pictures. Those are fake. They lie. And then they have to come back like 24 hours later and say, actually, they are real. They just weren't authorized for release. Okay. How about don't release any of this? How about just bury this? And the person who came up with this stupid idea can be buried right along with it. It's so dumb. What is happening to this country? The way you fix it is you just say it out loud, all right? You just confront this nonsense, please. Coming up, I'm going to be joined by Dan Moreno. He's got some thoughts on Joe Biden's meddling with the government. He's nominating awful people for jobs that affect your life. We'll discuss.